Today we celebrate the feast day of the Exaltation of the cross. And when we celebrate this feast day, we ought to admire the transformative power of God. In the feast day of the Exaltation of the cross, we admire God's transforming power. For God, things are not fixed as in stone and changeable, but rather today it's visible that for God, everything can change and everything can be transformed for better. Today in my homily, I will make a case for God's transformative power. Let us think about the cross. And let us think about how the cross has been transformed by God. What used to be the cross? The cross used to be the instrument saved to punish the worst criminals for the worst crimes. The cross was the symbol of punishment for the worst criminals. In a sense, one could argue that the cross was the symbol of humiliation, the symbol of due punishment, and I would even dare to say the symbol of curse. Those who were hanging in the cross were the cursed ones. The cross was such a despicable punishment that no Roman citizen could undergo the cross. It was a punishment saved for those who were not Roman citizens. But what did God do with the cross? How did God transform the cross? The cross went from being the worst symbol, the worst crime for the worst criminal, to be the most tender and sublime symbol of the love of God. The cross went from an image of being cursed to an image of the love of the Father for humanity and the obedience of the Son. And that is why, if you think about it, us Catholics, the symbol that we hold so dear in our hearts is the symbol of the cross, and that's why we do the sign of the cross. So God has this transformative power of making something that used to be a sign of curse, and now He's made it the symbol and the most tender symbol of the love of God for us. And this holds a beautiful lesson for our lives. Nothing is irredeemable for God. Nothing is so lost for God that He cannot transform it. Even the cross was transformed into something beautiful. Even the cross has become the symbol of love. And this is a reminder that no matter how lost a person is, God can transform it and make it an instrument of His love. And this is true in the life of the saints. Think about St. Paul, think about Mary Magdalene, who all seemed to be lost beyond solution. But today we celebrate God's transforming power. But let me take one step further. You know where else we can see God's transforming power in the feast day of the Exaltation of the cross? The fact that God can work in our hearts and in the hearts of the saints. Not only the capacity to endure the cross or to withstand the cross, but the capacity to endure the cross with joy. Brothers and sisters, I agree with you. I think there can be non-Christians or non-Catholics who can endure the sufferings of life with patience. I do not dispute that. I think there can be people outside of the church who can endure the cross with patience. But I doubt seriously that outside of the transformation that God can operate in the heart of a person, someone can endure the cross with joy and yearning the cross. Our flesh, our human constitution, runs away from suffering, and we pursue all sorts of entertainment. But only God's transforming power can make someone not only endure the cross with patience, but yearn for the cross. Here in this church, we have a beautiful image of Saint Teresa of Lisieux. You know what Saint Teresa of Lisieux said about the cross? She said, I find no rest but in the cross. I find no repose of my soul but when I can share the cross with our Lord. So today that we celebrate the transforming power of God, we wonder at the capacity of God making the hearts of Christians not only able to bear the cross, but also able to yearn and embrace the cross, embrace penance, embrace suffering. So this brings the question for each one of us. How much has God transformed your heart with regards to the cross? Are you a person that barely tolerates suffering and the cross? Or are you capable of withstanding the cross with joy? Are you able to truly embrace joyfully the difficulties of life and the sufferings that you have not looked for with joy? Do you yearn for penance and for the cross? Let me finish with this, and I think this is something very practical. I think that's something that Catholics could bring back more into their homes, and especially this encouragement goes for parents and also future parents, is blessing their kids with the sign of the cross. I remember that when I was growing up, there was a friend of mine whose mom was very Catholic. And I remember that every time that when I was hanging out with my friend and we were going out, for whatever, his mom would always say, come here. And he would do the sign of the cross over his son. And I was talking with the community yesterday about this. Brother Evan told me that when he was growing up, his parents, before he went to sleep, they always did the sign of the cross over him. Brother Jose told me that his grandma did it to him. And I think this is a beautiful practice that we should bring back into our families. If we don't do it, think about it. In baptism, each one of us received the common priesthood of all the faithful. So in a sense, it is perfectly proper and appropriate for parents to bless because they also possess the common priesthood. And blessing is an exercise of the priesthood. So I want to strongly encourage parents and future parents here present to bring into their households back the practice of blessing your child with the sign of the cross. Because the sign of the cross has become for us a sign of protection, a sign of love, and a reminder that if you want to be the disciple of Christ, you also have to endure your cross. So today, brothers and sisters, let us rejoice in the transformative power of God, who makes the cross no longer a sign of curse, but a sign of love and protection, who changes the heart of the people not only to endure the cross, but to rejoice in the cross and to yearn for the cross. And in this Eucharist, the cross is always present, because in the Eucharist, there's always the renewal of the cross. So let us also bring back the cross into our lives.